So I'm going to start with a quote. The dream, it was clearer than a memory, and I heard the sound of thundering hooves, splintering shields, and ringing swords, and I placed my heir upon the throne, and all the dragons roared as one. And the person saying this quote is Viserys Targaryen, which I'm guessing is the current ruler of the time, the current king of Westeros. And I'm curious, like, I don't know if this is the guy who Viserys from Game of Thrones is named after, because the Targaryens are like renamed 20 times.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's named after who, but he's the one who says that. And then the first scene we get is with, I'm assuming, Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra, I think is how you pronounce
I
it.
mix up their names. They're super similar. I think there's like a Rhaenyra and a Rhaenara or something. They're so close though.
Yeah, so she's walking into the throne room while Viserys' opening monologue is going off. And something I immediately noticed in this scene is the Iron Throne. And it looks way more similar to the way it's described in the books, where it's like kind of like a crumble of swords that are just like melted together by fire, where the other one looks a lot more like polished, cleaned down. Um Honestly, I think the one from the original Game of Thrones looks cooler, but I appreciate like that this one has that style of like in the books. Um so yeah, I don't know. Any comments on that?
Yeah. So for one, I think that opening quote is interesting because later on throughout the trailer, he's talking about choosing an heir. So right here, it's almost like he's already talking in future tense of how he placed his heir. But just timeline wise, I'm wondering where exactly does this line up? So
Yeah,
I
and
thought
then
that was kind of interesting.
especially because if you think about the show, I'll talk about the show specifically, honestly. The there was like visions and stuff like that, so that's not something we're unheard of, and prophecies. So maybe this was like a, I don't know, some sort of vision, dream, something like that. So that's maybe,
Flashback. I don't know.
yeah, like, is this going to be the catalyst that starts bringing up that dream, the questions of who is going to succeed me?
Yeah.
Cut to what looks like a tournament duel. I don't know who's fighting, but it looks cool. But it immediately reminds me of when they had the tournament for Ned when he becomes Hand of the King. Like, they get to King's Landing, they immediately have a tournament. And I was
Very Game
watching
of
that,
Thrones.
having the flashbacks of the mountain cutting off a horse, like it took me back. I think, I don't know if they did it on purpose, but it was immediately like, Game of Thrones, man. What a time. But yeah.
So I have the trailer pulled up right here, and I do know who the guy in black armor is. So that is Damon. They had released a still image of him in his
Armor.
Targaryen-ish armor, I guess. So that is Damon, and from the looks of it, he's getting dropped. And
You
from
think
what we've
so?
seen so far, dude, he gets his shield shattered, and then he like falls to the ground in the trailer.
He
So
he
go
looks
for it.
like an Elden Ring enemy, dude. That armor, the helmet, so like high up,
Yeah.
Elden Ring vibes immediately.
Well, at least vibe wise, what I've gotten from Damon, he does not seem like a guy that would take getting beat down lightly. Like he does
Mm.
definitely seem like a very prideful dude that's like, nah, man, you don't do that to me. And from what we know about the Targaryens, like them as a whole, they were a very prideful family, They didn't like to be pushed down.
Yeah, you don't
So
wake the dragon.
don't wake the dragon, no.
We get a scene where Viserys, I'm assuming, cuts his hand on the Iron Throne, which I love because of, like, that's what they say in the book, that it was so sharp that it would cut you. Um, and then we get a couple of dragons flying over King's Landing, and the last time we saw that, we all know what happened. So that brought back memories. I don't know if you had anything to
Well, quick
comment there.
quick comment there, yeah. So it's really easy to forget that like the Targaryens ruled King's Landing. We equate King's Landing with being the Lannisters, but it's like, nah, man, this was the Targaryens' place for a
Yeah.
while. So it's cool to be able to see like this is the times that they refer to so often in the books and in the show. So
Okay, I'm also excited to see King's Landing in its full force, because there's a lot of things, and I think they focus more on it in the books, but the TV show also. of like, oh yeah, this used to be the dragon pit. This used to be this. Like we used to have this here. So now you get to see, the arenas and stuff like that that were you had only heard about before. So I'm really
Mhm.
excited to see that. Hopefully we get a little bit of that. All right. So then we get to a scene where what I assume is the current council, I think is what they called it in Game of Thrones, determining who will be heir to the throne. And I wonder if like that monologue that we got is in this scene where they're discussing the heir to the throne with the council. And I wrote
Mhm.
down a couple names here because Game of Thrones had good caption, or HBO had good captions. We have Otto Hightower talking. We have Lionel Strong. I don't know who that is. Like I never saw a picture of him who I could have guessed. And then we have Coriolis Valerion, who is the black guy with the really sick white dreads. Um, and this is where we are told of what I'm assuming will be the plot of the story, which is Rhaenyra becoming queen, which is what I'm guessing is happening just from this trailer. It seems like she gets chosen. Um, yeah, and I have a couple questions,
Mhm.
or not a couple questions, but like I immediately go because they're like, oh, like you already have an heir, and it's your son. Like, oh, Rhaenyra, and I'm like, why Rhaenyra? And Otto Hightower is the one that suggests Rhaenyra, and why? Like, I want to know why that happens because in this universe, everybody has schemes and plots. So why did he suggest that, and why not Daemon? And why do they decide not to pick Daemon? So I'm excited to see that.
Mhm.
Thoughts?
Yeah, so I have not read the Fire and Blood book. So all this stuff that we're coming up with is
Just from
speculation
the
or
trailer.
yeah, or it's little name drops in A Song of Ice and Fire books, but we have not
Yeah.
actually read any of this. But I do know Otto Hightower is the Hand of the King. I do know that he is the Hand, and the Hightower name I actually don't know where that came from. You do you know what that
So
is?
no, well, so I when we were watching this, I was writing this down, and I was like, I've heard it. Like, I I know it's come up once, and I was like racking my brain, and then finally I was like, you know what? I think I have an idea. So I went to. I thought where Ned Stark goes to where Lyanna is giving birth. Spoilers for Game of Thrones. Was Hightower, but actually it's the
Mhm.
Tower of Joy. But he fights Sir Arthur Dane there, and I think his name is like Gerard Hightower. So
Mhm.
even so, to this day, or to that day where Ned fights them, they're still connected. I'm assuming because they're fighting on behalf of the Targaryens. But that's weird to
Okay.
me because, as we'll talk about in this trailer, if I had to predict the conflict, it seems like the Hightowers are kind of in the mix of this thing of like, starting to ruffle some feathers up to get this conflict going. So that was interesting to me. But yeah, that's where I remember Hightower was from Ned Stark fighting them. Him.
Well, Otto is one aspect, but the other really big one is the guy from Valyria. That's a really big name or really big house that we haven't really gotten much about. I mean, we know about Valyrian Steel, but
Yeah,
I believe
I have
that
no
the
idea who this guy is.
yeah, so I know a couple of like little facts that I think could have big implications. So for one, this guy is Valyrian. He's from Valyria, and I believe he is the last of the Valyrian line. He is kind of the last of that family. And I believe that the Valyrians were the only other house or group of people that actually had dragons. And they don't have
Mm.
dragons anymore. So I can see
Well,
that causing some drama.
something that I also like wondering, like, are at this point, is there people who remember Valyria or Valyria? You know, like in this
Mhm.
generation, did some of those people used to live there? Do they hear stories? Like, is that still like, oh yeah, we came from there and it was like this, or has it already been too long gone? I don't know. I have no idea when the
I don't know
story
either.
takes place, honestly. All right, so then boom, we cut to some soldiers pounding their chest to a beat, which was pretty sick. I love the armor; it looks very classic medieval knight fantasy style, which we didn't really see a lot of in Game of Thrones, I think. And then we see the backs of what looks like another Targaryen, and then we get a shot of two dragons flying over what I assume is Dragonstones. And then we see Rhaenyra Targaryen talking to who I think, or no, Rhaenys Targaryen, which is like the older one. She has
Yeah.
like wrinkles. She looks like kind of I would describe her as an older lady talking to the Corlears Valerian, I think, and she tells him that there's gonna be some family drama by Rhaenyra being chosen to succeed, and I'm all about it, dude. I like this is where you're like, boom, okay, this is what this show's about. Like, she's been chosen. There's gonna be strife, and then it's kind of like there's
Mhm.
never been a girl, you know, like how are they
Yeah,
gonna
because
take it?
Rhaenyra is the daughter of the king, and then Daemon, I believe, is the brother of the king.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a line I didn't put in there because in the council scene, he's like, I'm not gonna choose between my daughter and my brother. He doesn't talk like that, but
And that
that's
right
what he
there,
says.
I already told you, I think are going to be his death words. Like, you make a statement that bold, there's people scheming and plotting for who they want to take over in the succession. Like, there's going to be something there.
Yeah, there's actually
I think.
I have a little theory going on that I think the trailer kind of misdirects some stuff. But yeah, we'll get into that. And then we get two shots of another girl we don't know the name of yet, but we have Rhaenyra's voiceover telling someone, "You are the king, and your duty is to wed a new wife." Obviously, that's important, and I don't know, like, I don't know if it's like that Viserys has been, what's it called, like a widow. I don't know what you call a male widow, or it just didn't work out. And I don't know why she's telling him that. Is she's gonna succeed him right now? So like that's a really confusing line of dialogue to me that I'm just like, what the heck?
Mhm.
Um, and then I also thought like maybe she's talking to Damon, but I'm like that doesn't make sense because he's not king, or maybe it's when she thinks he's gonna be king. And I think like if you don't turn on the trailer, the captions of the trailer, you think that it's the redhead girl talking.
So, right before that scene where they're discussing his marriage arrangements, I believe the monologue kind of bleeds over with this, which might be hinting at something. But there's a part where Damon is approaching the Iron Throne, and he's actually wearing a crown, which, if I remember correctly, most people don't really wear crowns unless you're like really cocky or you're like a king, you know? But for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, they don't really wear their crowns. And he's approaching the Iron Throne, and right when he gets to the foot, one of like the King's Guard pulls out his sword and places on his chest, like telling him, "Don't walk any closer." So you already can tell there is conflict here. There's stuff going down. So
Yeah, and I think I'll get to it at the end if we don't bring it up just in conversation. Uh, I think the trailer kind of sets up some deceit. I think of who they want you to think is fighting between each other. Okay, so then we cut to Viserys saying he has decided to name a new heir, and then it shows Daemon saying he is the heir. I am skeptical that that's the same interaction of like I have chosen a new
mhm.
heir, and then I think that might be trailer editing. And then we have a cut to a standoff on Dragonstone between Damon and
Beautiful
I
shot.
believe Otto Hightower. So again, like okay, so obviously these two had a
Wait.
disagreement there. So yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
let
I don't know.
me,
You have
because
any
I
thoughts
have
on
it.
that?
I'm following along on the trailer right here. For one, I love that shot of the standoff. It looks awesome. And that's pretty interesting if it is him standing off against Otto, because I can't tell who the girl who's standing behind him is, but I believe it's the redhead girl that's been coming up. And the redhead girl is actually the daughter of Otto Hightower and the
Mm-hmm.
best friend of the young Targaryen girl who's going to be queen.
Yeah. See,
So
I can see like I watched this trailer a lot. All right, so I can see where like I think I'm gonna change your mind on some things here as we go. So we'll get to
by all means.
that.
But also
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that he's holding a dragon egg. That's kind of like
Oh,
why
he is
why
in
is he
that
holding.
scene. I didn't even notice
Yeah,
that.
he has his dragon already, unless this is before it's born, but I highly doubt
Well,
that cuz all right, go
I
for
got you with
it.
something there. Well, we'll bring it up. Bring it up because there's a part where I'm like, what the heck? Okay, so now we get Rhaenyra questioning herself if the realm will accept her or not. I don't know who she's talking to there. And then we get another edit of Rhaenys, the old lady, basically saying like, "Nah, they won't. Like, you're a girl. That's just how it goes. Like the order of things. It should go the way it should go." Um, and yeah, it obviously looks, and we do know that this is a civil war between the Targaryens, supposedly. Yeah, so at least in my opinion, it doesn't seem like the older lady's on Rhaenyra's side. And then Rhaenyra starts talking about, "Oh, I want when I am queen, there's a new order," and that reminded me a lot of Dany, and that made me sad.
Yep. Very Daenerys.
So obviously, that already like sucks because well, it didn't happen. Like whatever new order you thought you were gonna put into place permanently just didn't take, which sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Westeros just swallows good people and spits them out, man. Any thoughts on this stuff?
No, nothing super major here. Just the names. It's gonna be a whole other learning all these names type of thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
this trailer definitely helped me writing their names and trying to turn on the captions and seeing who was talking. That helped me a little bit.
I do think
Uh,
that the costume of the youngest Targaryen girl is super sick. That like red dress with like the gold cape on it. It looks
yeah, and then
super awesome.
that scene where she has her crown on in the middle of the throne room, fire,
Yeah,
bro.
it
That was
looks awesome.
she looks cool. Okay, so then I think this is where it starts like really hitting like the high pace of cuts. So we get a battle shot with a voiceover of Rigo Hertis saying that your family has dragons. No idea who that is. That's thrown in
Me
there.
neither.
He's a named character. And then we get some cool dragon action shots, eggs, this huge dragon with some really cool horns, which I was like, dude, that
Oh,
looks
that
sick.
dragon is Caraxes, and I believe he's Daemon's dragon. His
Hmm.
name's Caraxes the Bloodworm, I think,
Magma
which
worm
is
from
pretty cool.
Elden Ring.
Pretty cool name.
And all I can say is, man, they look good, dude. Like those shots are like, ooh, like yeah, like that's like I think nobody can argue that season 6 through 8 of Game of Thrones visually were like the best thing put on television. Like I think stuff is finally starting to rival it. But before that, like it was in a league of its own, and it's just like, oh yeah, don't forget that we can do this too. Not only are we good storytellers, but we're gonna put this
Yep.
out there. We get the redhead's name, and it's Alysanne Hightower, which yeah, you said was the daughter of Otto Hightower, which I didn't know. I guess I could assume it. And yeah, like this is what I'm trying to say. Like the trailer makes it seem like they're friends, and then all of a sudden it's like, nah, they're not friends. They're not friends at all.
Yep.
Her and Rhaenyra, not at
Our
all.
hearts are one. They were never one. There's that
Yeah,
line, I
and
think.
she's not talking to her. Actually, in the captions, it's
Okay.
Viserys, I believe, who says that line, and Alysanne Hightower says they were never one. So I'm like, okay, is she the one who marries him? Like, what's up with
Huh.
that?
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and did she marry him for the throne? Because then you see like I don't know where it is. I don't think I wrote it actually, but you see a
Or did
shot
the
where she's
hand
like,
marry her off to get like some sort of right to succession or
yeah, and then you get that shot because they're really fast pace of like, um, oh, like have you ever dreamt of being on the Iron Throne, which is the old lady Targaryen talking to her, and
planting those
then
seeds?
yeah, dude, that's where you're seeing like the political scheming that I love of Game of Thrones, and then we get a bunch of shots in rapid succession, and this dude with an eye patch who looks really cool, and more battle shots, and like it's just so much happening that like it's like you'd have to pause every second to see really what's going on, and then we have a dinner party where it looks like we're gonna have a fight, and we have Rhaenyra like holding a knife, the amazing line right here, and she's like, now they see you as you are, and I think she's definitely talking about Alyssa Hightower. I think this is where it shows
Hmm.
like, nah, you weren't really my friend, this is just a plan, and like, dude, I just hype. I don't really know what's like leading up to that, but it was sick. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I told you, that it went really fast, so it was like I just kind of grouped it all together. I'm curious, I am really curious who the guy with the eye patch is though. I don't know who that is. I don't think it's Damon.
At first I thought it was Damon, but looking at his face, I can't tell. I mean, both of them have that like chiseled high elf look to them, so I can't tell if they're similar or
Yeah.
not. Or but
All right. So that's about it. That's all I got for now. With as far as like breaking it down scene by scene. Um, and I'll leave up your thoughts real quick, and then we can jump into some more thoughts.
yeah, I'm super excited. I think production wise, it rivals those last seasons of Game of Thrones. So that
No, I don't
looks
think it rivals
absolutely
that.
amazing.
I
You
think
don't
it's
think it
better.
rivals that?
I think it's
Better.
better already.
Fair enough. So super excited about that. I mean, I've seen some of the behind the scenes where they built these castles pretty much, and it's gonna pay off, I think, big time. It has a very realistic, very lived in look to it, which is definitely different than some of the other fantasy shows that are coming out or have come out, which I appreciate also. It gives it that very Game of Thrones look, which is iconic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just really excited to get into the politics and the scheming. I will say now, I think Damon's going to be my favorite. I really like the edgy, bad character. And yeah, I think it's
See,
going to be a similar, like, who sides with the rightful heir and who sides with the heir that shouldn't be on the throne and stuff like that. So, but it's a
all
tense
right.
time.
So here we go. I have. I was like, I got this trailer. I was like, okay, cool. I got answers, and now I'm like, what the heck? What's going on? You know if there's gonna be a time jump in this? Has that been confirmed? Because the young girl, I am pretty confident is the older one. Like it's the young girl, and then there's one that's not the old lady, but there's one like in between, and I'm like, is that her? Because she looks like a little bit more fuller in the cheeks, looks like a different actress. So I'm like, is are we gonna be getting a two like timeline story going on here of before and after type thing going on? Because like you said, there's dragon eggs, and you're like, well, they already have their dragons. And it's like, well, maybe they didn't. And the intro and the like the past timeline, and like that's the present timeline where they have their dragons. So I'm like, there has to be, right? Because are there two
Mm-hmm.
actors playing Rhaenyra? I kind of don't want to look it up because I'm like, the thing they're setting up that I think was like a bait is I really think they want you to think that Daemon is gonna challenge for the throne. But I think Daemon and Rhaenyra are gonna be homies. I think that shot on Dragonstone, I think she's behind him.
Hmm.
So I think it's gonna be them two, and I think the High Towers are gonna be kind of the
Hmm.
ones, and the older Targaryen lady. I think it's gonna be kind of like the old blood and the new blood. You know what I mean? I'm hyped. I think this is great. I can't wait for August 21st.